Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Right.
Today, we were going to be tackling the idea of strengths-based management.
Okay.
And we're going to be using excerpts from Marcus Buckingham's book, Now Discover Your Strengths.
All right.
So this book kind of challenges like the traditional way that we think about success in the workplace.
Yeah.
And this deep dive is all about helping you understand those concepts and how you can use them in your own career.
It is fascinating how this book flips the script on how we typically approach professional and personal development.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on our weaknesses and, constantly trying to improve upon them, this book really stresses the importance of leaning into our strengths.
So instead of always, focusing on what we're not good at, it's about like, okay, well, what are we already good at and how do we get even better?
Exactly. And it's a huge shift from what organizations have been doing for a really long time.
Yeah.
They've been focused on trying to fix weaknesses, making sure everyone is well-rounded, when in fact, focusing on an individual's strengths is actually a much better way to achieve excellence.
And this book uses a lot of like anecdotes and real-world examples.
Right.
Is there a particular example that you think really illustrates this point well?
Well, Warren Buffett is a great example.
Oh, yeah?
He built his success on being patient, practical, and having a trusting nature.
Okay.
Now, these may not seem like typical traits that you would see in like the fast-paced world of finance.
Right.
But he stuck with them. It paid off.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like it worked for him.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really matter if it's different.
Right.
Okay, so the book focuses on strengths.
Yes.
But how does it actually define strength?
Right.
Because I feel like that word gets tossed around a lot.
You're absolutely right. It can be very vague. The book defines a strength as consistent, near-perfect performance in an activity, and this comes from a combination of your talent, skills, and knowledge.
Okay, so it's not just about being good at something.
Exactly.
There's like different levels to it.
Yeah.
So can you break those down for me a little bit?
Absolutely.
Like, what's the difference between talent, skills, and knowledge?
So think of talent as your innate ability.
Okay.
What you're naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
Skills are techniques that you can learn and practice.
Okay.
And knowledge is information that you gather on a specific topic.
Right.
And they all contribute to building strength, but your talent is really the foundation.
So like, I'm trying to think of like a good analogy.
Yeah.
Like with baiting, for example. You can learn recipes and techniques, but, if you naturally have like a good sense for flavor combinations,
Right.
that might like set you apart.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The book uses the example of a salesperson.
Okay.
They can learn everything about a product, and that's knowledge.
Okay.
And they can master all the techniques, and that's skill.
Okay.
But closing the deal at just the right moment might require a natural talent like command or individualization.
So it's like that extra something that you can't teach. But the book also points out that like, even when we do recognize strengths, like the language we use to describe them isn't always helpful.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like terms that we use all the time, like self-motivated or strategic thinking.
Right.
They're not very precise.
Yeah.
So what exactly does it mean to be self-motivated?
Right. Or like, what does that look like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even when we do have specific language for strong behavior, sometimes it can have negative connotations.
Okay.
Like someone who is quick to act might be labeled as impulsive rather than proactive.
Right.
You see?
It's like we shy away from certain strengths.
Exactly.
Because they don't fit like this traditional idea of what's good. So how do we move past that?
Well, that's where understanding the science behind talent comes in.
Okay.
The book talks about how our brain has this mental network
Okay.
where stronger connections represent your natural talents.
Okay.
And the way that we can kind of tap into this is by looking at our spontaneous reactions, particularly under pressure.
So it's like those gut reactions when we don't have time to overthink things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does the book give like an example of this?
Yes. There's this great story about 4 people on a plane, and all of a sudden the plane takes this terrifying plunge.
Oh my God.
And their reactions in this high-pressure situation perfectly reflect their natural talents.
Oh, wow.
So you have Kathy, the manager, who starts intently observing everyone's reactions.
Okay.
And Amy, the software designer, focuses on the precise details of what's happening.
Okay.
And then you have Martin from client relations, who starts using humor to lighten the mood.
Okay.
And Brad, a natural leader who immediately takes charge.
It's like their true selves kind of come out when they're forced to like react on instinct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is actually a key takeaway for you, the listener, as well.
Okay.
Yeah, pay attention to your spontaneous reactions.
Okay.
How do you behave when you're at a party or in a meeting at work? If you find yourself drawn to new people, that might be the woo theme. Or if you prefer sticking with familiar faces, that might be the relator theme.
Oh, interesting.
These are all little clues that can tell you something about your talents.
Wow. I'm already like analyzing all my behaviors.
Right.
Now, are there other clues we should be looking for?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The book talks about yearnings, rapid learning, and satisfactions.
Okay.
Yearnings are those persistent desires or passions that we've had since childhood.
Okay.
Like the kid who loves to build things or tell stories.
Yes.
That's a strong indicator of natural talent.
So it's like those things you're just like naturally drawn to, even if you haven't really pursued them seriously.
Exactly.
Okay. What about rapid learning?
Rapid learning is when you pick up a skill effortlessly.
Okay.
Like maybe you learn a language really quickly or you master a musical instrument.
Right.
That could suggest a natural talent in that area.
Makes sense. And lastly, satisfactions.
Satisfactions are activities that just consistently leave you feeling fulfilled and energized.
Right. Like this is what I should be doing.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've got a lot of ways to start recognizing those talents. But what about like a more structured approach?
Well, that's where the StrengthsFinder profile comes in.
Okay. So this is a tool designed to help you pinpoint those dominant talents.
Exactly.
Okay. So this StrengthsFinder profile helps give you like a clear picture of your talents.
Yes.
How does it actually work?
So basically, it presents you with pairs of statements.
Okay.
And you have limited time to choose which one resonates more with you.
Okay.
And it's really designed to capture your spontaneous choices rather than, overthinking it.
Like trusting your gut.
Exactly.
Okay. And then based on those answers, what does the profile tell you?
It identifies your top 5 themes, which are called your signature themes.
Signature themes.
And these themes represent recurring patterns in your thought, feeling, or behavior.
So it's not just giving you like a list of traits.
Right.
It's kind of like highlighting these underlying themes that make you you.
Exactly.
What are some of the themes that you think are particularly relevant in the workplace?
Well, there are 34 themes in total.
Oh.
Each of them come with a pretty detailed description.
Okay.
But some of the ones that really stand out in a work context are achiever, activator, analytical, arranger, communication.
And even if 2 people share a theme, like it might manifest differently for each of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that not every phrase in a theme description is going to perfectly apply to everyone.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because each person's mental network is unique. So the way a theme manifests it can vary.
So it's like, using the same ingredients, but you can make different dishes.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's say you've taken this StrengthsFinder profile and you've identified your top 5 themes.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Well, that's where the real work begins.
Okay.
The book really emphasizes the importance of aligning your life and your career with your signature themes. So choosing roles and projects and activities that allow you to use those strengths that you naturally excel in.
So it's not just about like knowing your strengths. It's about like shaping your life around them.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you differentiate between like your core strengths and ones that maybe aren't as dominant?
So the book distinguishes between signature themes and responsive themes.
Okay.
So your signature themes are always on. They are constantly driving your behavior.
Yeah.
Responsive themes, however, are only activated in certain situations.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So like if communication is a signature theme for someone, they might naturally be drawn to roles that involve a lot of like writing or speaking, even outside of work.
Right.
But if it's a responsive theme, they might only feel that urge to communicate strongly in specific contexts.
Exactly.
Like giving a presentation or something.
Exactly.
The book also mentions how like different theme combinations can create unique strengths. So it's not just about like the individual themes, it's about how they work together.
It's the interplay.
Yeah. Are there any examples from the book that show this?
Yeah, so the book explains how someone with both ideation and context as dominant themes might be a creative theorist like Charles Darwin, seeing connections that others miss.
Interesting.
But if you combine ideation with futuristic, you might get a visionary like Bill Gates, who's constantly imagining what's possible.
Oh, wow. So those different combinations can create like a different type of strength?
Exactly.
But even as we focus on strengths, we can't completely ignore our weaknesses.
Of course not.
So how does the book address that?
Well, it encourages a shift
Okay.
from fixing your weaknesses to managing them.
So it's like less about trying to be good at
Yes,
everything
exactly.
and more about being strategic.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Cool.
And the book offers several strategies for doing just that.
Like what?
Well, one approach is to develop support systems.
Support systems.
Yeah,
What does that mean? Basically, these are personalized routines or strategies that you can use to compensate for your weaknesses.
Oh, so it's like almost like a superhero's utility belt.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So, for example, the book mentions a manager who is naturally disorganized.
Okay.
So her solution was to schedule a monthly desk cleanout.
Okay.
Or a teacher with a short attention span managed it by marking papers in sets of 5.
Oh, so like breaking it down into smaller chunks.
Exactly. It's all about understanding your limitations and finding ways to work smarter, not harder.
Right. Those are great examples.
Right.
Yeah. Super simple but effective.
Mm-hmm.
What about like leveraging our strengths to kind of tackle a weakness head on?
That's another great strategy.
Okay.
The book tells a story about Mike Kay, a consultant who had a really bad stammer as a child.
Oh, wow.
And public speaking was obviously a huge fear for him.
Right.
But he actually learned to use his talents for storytelling and humor.
Okay.
To connect with audiences and overcome that stammer.
So he kind of like turned that weakness into an asset.
Right.
Are there other strategies that the book mentions?
Well, sometimes the best approach is to simply partner with someone who has strengths where you struggle.
Okay.
You know, teamwork is all about maximizing your strengths and minimizing your weaknesses.
So 2 heads are better than 1.
Exactly.
What about those weaknesses that are just like truly draining,
Yeah.
even if they don't directly impact our work?
Well, in those cases, the book suggests that sometimes the best strategy is to just stop doing that activity altogether.
Really?
Yeah.
Just stop.
If it's not essential and it's causing you a lot of stress, delegate it or just eliminate it.
That sounds almost too simple.
Right.
But I can see how that would be appealing just to let go of those things.
Yeah.
Does the book have an example of that?
Yeah, so there's a story about Mary Kay, a manager who lacked the talent for empathy.
Okay.
And she was constantly trying to read people's emotions, and it was just exhausting for her.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
Yeah.
So she decided to stop.
Uh-huh.
She just stopped.
Yeah, and she focused on communicating clearly and delegating tasks, and her team really appreciated that.
So it sounds like she found freedom in accepting her limitations.
Exactly.
So this has all been focused on like individual strengths.
Yeah.
But how can organizations as a whole become more strengths-based?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The book outlines 4 key steps that organizations can take.
Okay, so we're moving beyond like individual growth now
Right.
to like creating a culture that really values strengths.
That's awesome.
So the first step is to define clear performance metrics based on results
Okay.
in 3 key areas: business outcomes, customer impact, and cultural impact.
So it's about setting those like specific measurable goals.
Exactly.
Yeah, rather than just like vague ideas. And then step 2.
Step 2 is to develop balanced scorecards for each employee.
Balanced scorecard.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So these basically track their progress in those areas.
Okay.
And they provide clarity and accountability. So it's like moving away from those generic performance reviews
Right.
to a system where you've got like concrete data points.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Awesome. What's the next step?
Step 3 is to initiate strengths-based conversations during performance reviews.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on areas for improvement, the conversation shifts to leveraging their talents.
So it becomes less about like what you're not good at
Right.
and more about how to use your strengths to your advantage.
Exactly.
I like that. And lastly,
organizations can create a company-wide theme inventory.
company-wide theme inventory.
Uh-huh.
What's that?
Basically, it involves everyone taking the Strengths Finder profile,
Okay.
and then you can analyze the collective strengths and potential blind spots of the organization.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got this map of your organization's talent pool,
Exactly.
which you can use to inform like, team building project assignments,
Exactly.
even succession planning.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Uh-huh. And it really underscores that a strengths-based approach, it doesn't just benefit individuals, it benefits the entire organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it really is like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
This has been a fascinating look at this whole idea of shifting our focus, from weaknesses to strengths.
It's a real paradigm shift.
Yeah, both personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So for our listeners who are, maybe feeling inspired and ready to start applying these ideas,
Right.
what would you say are like the key takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, the core message really is that, real success and fulfillment come from understanding and leveraging your strength,
Okay.
not from trying to be good at everything. Find
Yeah.
your talents and build your life around them.
And it's not about like just pretending our weaknesses don't exist.
No, of course not.
It's about finding those strategies to manage them.
Right.
Whether it's, creating support systems, leveraging other strengths, collaborating with others, or even just stopping those activities that trigger the weakness. And, as we saw, organizations can benefit too
Oh, absolutely.
from adopting this strengths-based approach.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute their best.
Yeah, and where those unique talents are appreciated.
Mm.
This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah.
I know I'm already thinking about how I can apply some of these ideas.
That's good.
Any final thoughts for our listeners as they kind of embark on their own journey of strengths discovery?
I would say, ask yourself this question. What if your greatest successes come not from fixing your weaknesses, but from becoming even more exceptional in your areas of strength?
Wow, that's a really powerful thought.
Yeah,
It's definitely a shift in perspective.
it is.
Well, this has been another fantastic deep dive.
Thank you.
So to our listeners, take some time to reflect on those strengths,
Mm-hmm.
explore the resources mentioned in Now Discover Your Strengths,
Yeah,
and most importantly, continue that journey of self-discovery.
absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.